Stand-up comedy is our subject today, and we have a wonderful performer and workshop provider, teacher, and entertainer, Kathe Farris, with us today. I'm Suzette Standring, and you are watching It's All Right with Suzette. Our guest today, Kathe Farris, is a stay-at-home mom by day and a stand-up comedian by night. She produces, performs, and teaches stand-up comedy. She has appeared in ImprovBoston, Boston Comedy Chicks, Comedy Studio, and Women in Comedy Festival. We are so lucky to have her today to give you insights into the world of stand-up comedy. But before we talk to her, let's take a look at a little video clip of her performance.
Technically, I'm not a stay-at-home mom. According to the government, I'm a homemaker, but I'm not comfortable with that title since I don't make homes. I mean, I make things. I can make a lot of things. I can make a really nice dinner party mildly uncomfortable.
Well, that was fun. Kathe, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
There are so many people out there who look at stand-up comedy, love it, and sometimes wonder, could I ever reach that height of performing in public? And so I have so many questions to ask on their behalf. But so let's start with, how did you go from checking off comedy on your bucket list as just something to try out to making comedy your job?
I really fell into it, Suzette. You know, I took a class. I actually took a class about 26 years ago. And then I got married and I had kids. And it just was always in the back of my head that I wanted to do this. So I went back. 19 and a half years, it just drummed around in my head. I took a class, got a couple of minutes together. Then I started going to open mics, and in Boston it's great because we have a ton of shows that are produced by other comedians. So then I got stage time and I got to really hone my craft. And I've been busy ever since.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And I'm very curious, for those people who in the audience who are really hilarious around their friends and family, how do you suggest that they make the leap? Now, I have to tell you, I took one of your comedy workshops, and you are a mentor to me. In fact, we performed together at the Milton Arts Center. So this is possible. So tell me, how do they make the leap?
Okay, you know, what I find is that two different people come into comedy. There are people that are just, they're naturally funny, they're around their friends, and people in their lives are probably saying, oh, you know, you should do something with this. You're very funny, you should try stand-up comedy. And the way that they do it is simply the same way of either taking a class and start writing down these things that you're consistently saying that you're getting laughs at privately, or start going to open mics and practicing it. And then from there, the thing what you want to do with that is they want to be able to, you know, take those things and put it on stage and do this to a bunch of strangers and be that same person they are in their living room. So the way they do it is they either take a class or they just start. You could even just start. There's so many open mics around here. There's an open mic every night of the weekday in Boston.
I love your advice that just take a couple of minutes, create a couple of minutes of really funny stuff that you tell your friends, something that you're very familiar with, and just perform it on stage. I think that is really great advice. Now let's talk about comedy style, because you have a very unique perspective as a stand-up comedian. Talk a little bit about your style.
Well, my style is more, I'm very dry and I'm very serious. A lot of my perspective is from a serious point of view, and that's just because that's who I am the most comfortable. That's me at 2:30 in the afternoon when I'm picking up my kids from school and trying to get them to give me information. And so, and on stage, you're basically the most organized, prepared part of yourself that you're putting out there. Many people think, oh, that's a character. That's really not your character. That's just the most comfortable piece of you and the perspective that you want to give comedy from.
Now, I remember that you closed the comedy show at the Milton Arts Center, and you're very funny. I love your dry wit. Now, in person, in reality, you always come across as a very gentle, kind of quiet person, and I think that's really interesting because I think a lot of people equate stand-up comedians to incredibly outgoing, maybe even aggressive personalities. So can you speak to those people who are shy but hilarious?
That's a really good point, because what I find is that it's mostly these quiet, introverted people that get on stage. I am very quiet. I'm very I'm shy, and I often say that, because I'm shy and stay to myself. People think I'm a snob or Canadian. But what I find is that it's easier for me to go and perform to 68 strangers than it is to go to a dinner party with 7 people. That's painful for me. To do small talk. Absolutely, absolutely. I have no idea why that is, and I'm not alone in that. There are many of us out there that are like that we're just shy people, but privately, we know we're funny.
What kind of traits do you think a stand-up comedian needs to? It's enough to have the courage to even go on stage the first time. But what you say that you're a stay-at-home mom by day and a stand-up comedian at night. You've chosen not to go the regular circuit, the relentless travel circuit. So first of all, what kind of traits do you think a person needs?
Discipline. Yeah, it's like any skill you're learning. It's a skill. That's the thing. I think a lot of people think, oh, this is just a natural thing, and if you're good at it, you're just going to be naturally good at it. It's like learning how to play guitar. You don't just pick up a guitar and start, playing a song. You have to practice at it. You have to, work at it constantly. And that doesn't mean you have to be out every night of the week. It means you have to be thinking about your comedy every day, whether you're writing or you're walking around with this joke, or you're looking at things from a different perspective, or you're practicing on stage. Discipline is the biggest piece.
And the other assumption that I think people make is that if you do stand-up comedy, somehow you have to do the relentless circuit. But you've chosen to pick and choose. So tell us a little bit about that choice, not to go into it full-time, but you're still making a living as a workshop provider and an entertainer. Tell us how that works.
Well, for me, I was really lucky with that. I started late. I started at 43 to do this, and I really didn't think I was going to, go out and get a stand-up comedian career. What I didn't realize is that we have a wonderful community here, and there are so many shows in Boston that will keep you busy. So yeah, I do some fundraisers, and I do a couple of shows a week, and I teach at ImprovBoston. I teach Intro to Stand-Up once a week there as well, and then I do workshops monthly. And I was able to just kind of fill it in with that because 1, I want to stay married, and 2, I'm raising kids, and 3, and most importantly, I got into this not to get famous, but to get people to laugh. And so I just have to remind myself of that. It just works out this way, and I think mostly because in Boston there's so many opportunities in Boston, so it can keep you busy.
Can you suggest some of these opportunities, where they are, or what places they might be?
You mean for people who are trying to do stand-up?
Yes, okay. Right. For people who I guess get on open mic or something. Is that how it works?
Right. Well, there are a list of open mics that you can just Google Boston open mics, and you'll find them. And like I said, they're Sunday through Thursday, you're going to be able to find an open mic. And then you just go and you practice, or just go and watch other people practice. Then you'll see too that everyone's not a genius all at once. It takes practice to do this. It's painful and wonderful at the same time. So that would be my biggest thing, is just go to an open mic, or find one that you're comfortable at, or find a buddy to go with, and just meet me at this open mic, and we'll just start checking it out.
That is really interesting. For you, what did you have to pull out of yourself in order to get over your innate quiet and gentleness to really make people laugh?
That's wow. Well, the first year for me was terrifying.
Was it?
Yeah, I love writing jokes. So for me, what really fuels me is writing a joke and chasing that joke and knowing like, I think I've got something here. And then having to practice it was terrifying. But once I started being able to get consistent laughs with it, the nerves went away, and then it just kind of started to flow. And I got more comfortable on stage. So once that happened, it just started that the shyness went away and the terrors, the night terrors went away.
The night terrors go away?
Yeah, it's like anything. You just get comfortable with it.
Well, I remember attending one of your workshops and feeling that just from 1, 2, 3 alone, I got so much out of it that I didn't expect. The ability to practice, the ability to work with other people who are trying to scrape it into a pile. So in a moment, we're going to return with Kathe Farris and talk more about writing stand-up comedy and performance. So stay tuned and we'll be right back. And we're back with Kathe Farris and the art of stand-up comedy and writing. And now we're going to find out exactly, for those people who are interested in dipping a big toe into this pool, how do you get started and what can you expect? So let's start with the terror.
Okay.
What do you feel when people come to your workshop? How do you help them get over stage fright?
When people come to my workshop, I've got 2 different kinds of people that come. The first are people that have never done this before. So the first thing is that they're not even just frightened about the stage, they're frightened about the prospect of doing stand-up. So what we do is we go to that piece of, you came here for a reason, you have either a funny story or something to say, let's talk about that. And the other thing we do in terms of the stage fright is we get you right up behind the mic. And we do things that you don't need to be prepared for. So we give, like for example, we'll give you a topic, and then what we'll do is we'll stop you and ask you questions about that topic. And we make you talk about that topic for like a minute. And then you see like, oh, okay, that's what a minute feels like behind the mic, and I can do this, and I have things to say. And then from there, then we'll get into like, what did you bring, or what do you want to say? And we'll have exercises for them to do so that they can start figuring that out.
I experienced it myself, and I found it to be so helpful to get behind the mic, feel what a minute feels like. And one of the other things I wanted to ask you about is the difference between one-liner jokes and storytelling. Because I only realized going through your workshop that apparently there are 2 different kinds of comedians, those that come up with one-liners and those who tell a story. Is that correct, or do I have that wrong?
Well, that's what a lot of people think, that you know, that's a big misconception, I would say, because there's tons of ways to do jokes. There's mimic jokes, there's acting out jokes, there's lots of different ways. And what you find is you try to figure out like, well, what is the way that I want to do this joke? You know, how do I deliver something? Well, how do I find the funny in something? And those people that you talked about that are in their living room, they're making their friends laugh, you're figuring that out in your living room, and then we bring it to the stage. So the difference, like storytelling's a big thing. We have people who come and say, I'm more of a storyteller. That was you.
Yeah, that was me.
And what we do is we look at that story and we start breaking it down. We start reacting to the story, and we start, piling in some punchlines there, or pauses, or how else you could, act out some of this story. And that's how we punch it up and make it more of a stand-up bit than storytelling. But a lot of people can do this hybrid thing of doing a story and doing stand-up and having it together.
Well, it was a big revelation for me, because I remember I discovered your workshop when I performed for Boston Comedy Chicks, and I had a 7-minute story that won at the Milton Public Library for a story slam, and it was a funny story. But I quickly learned that I have to cut 7 minutes into 4, and like you say, pile in the punchlines a lot faster. So there's like such an art to that. What other kind of things can that people have to be aware of when they're trying to write stand-up comedy?
Well, that's the first thing, Suzette, is that we really don't write stand-up. We write down stand-up because we don't really create jokes by, well, I'm going to sit in front of my computer and now I'm going to write jokes. I'm going to go to a coffee shop, I'm going to write some jokes down in my notebook. It's not really that. It's that you're talking something out, or you have this idea and you record it. And then when you feel like, oh, this is kind of coming together, I've got some funny things to say here, then you start writing it down, and you can look at the joke formula and say, well, how long did it take me to get to that punchline? Do I need all that information? And is the punchline, could I make it, something more, could I make it funnier by making it more relatable or more specific, and where are the key words? So there's lots of things that you can do in the art of editing a joke, but in writing it, you just write it down.
Now, in these comedy workshops that you facilitate, about how many people on average, and in what way do they work together or interact?
Well, the first thing I want to say about the workshops is that I do work too. Like, I'm working my stuff out too. I'm not there being like, I'm the expert here. I'm just somebody who really likes the mechanics of a joke. So what happens is that we'll come and we'll work on your jokes in a small group. So there'll be like 3 other people with you, and everybody gets about 10 minutes. And you can either, here's something I'm working on, or here's my joke itself. And then you get feedback from 3 other people of, oh, that makes sense to me. Oh, I find that funny. Oh, have you ever thought about doing this with it? And so you start being able to work on it in a way that's more specific to just exactly what you're working on.
Now, talk to us about where your workshops. Where can people attend? Who are they sponsored by? How often do you give them? I think people would love to know where to find you.
Well, thanks. I think so too. Well, first you can find me at my website, KatheFarris.com. Also, I teach Intro to Stand-Up at ImprovBoston. We run classes every 8 weeks, and we have them almost every night of the week. So you could check out ImprovBoston.com. And then my workshops that we do on a monthly basis are sponsored by Women in Comedy Festival and Boston Comedy Chicks. And you can look on BostonComedyChicks.com or WomenComedyFestival.com and find our workshops. They're on Eventbrite as well. And those are once a month. They're usually the first or second Thursday of the month. Boston Comedy Chicks also runs a monthly show at Doyle's in Jamaica Plain the second Saturday of every month, which is a great show too.
Now, I remember when I took the comedy workshops, I think they were held on a Sunday.
They were. At
Doyle's Pub in Jamaica Plain, and you would work for a couple of hours on it, and those people who wanted to could actually perform at the bar, at Doyle's Pub rather, that night. Is that still going on?
Well, we actually have changed the format a little. We do this on Thursday nights now, and it's at 7. And we do more workshopping, more exercises with you. So like I said, the minute you come in, we put you behind the mic and we get you, comfortable behind the mic. And then we actually have you meet people too and network with people, because that's a big piece of this, Suzette. Like, if you can start meeting people that want to do this as well, then you can start networking with them, or make plans to meet up at an open mic together or go to a show together. And that way you're more apt to start doing this.
Do you feel that there is a difference between working with male comics versus female comics? I mean, what are the biggest differences do you find? I know that Robin Maxfield. Robin Maxfield founded Boston Comedy Chicks because she felt it was very difficult to start off and work with men who could be very, I guess, hard or harsh or something, and she felt that the supportive environment of women was more conducive. So what are your thoughts about that?
I think what Robin put together is fantastic.
Yes.
And I'm very excited to be a part of that. I found that people just think that, and so they're not wanting to come to something because they're afraid that there's going to be so many more men than women there. And that is the case in many cases. If I'm on a show on a Saturday night, I could be the only female or one of two females on the show. And so what Women in Comedy Festival and Boston Comedy Chicks have done is they made shows where they flip that ratio. We really have one man on the show or two men, because there are 7 other funny women that could carry that show. But in terms of workshopping, I actually have a co-host, Brett Johnson, who is fantastic.
I know him, yes.
Yes, you've met him.
Wonderful.
Right. And he actually became my co-host because he was so popular with people. He's just very talented at giving people feedback and making people feel at ease. And I like it because it shows that, no, we're all good with this. And my experience has been phenomenal with men in this community. I feel supported, even as being, the age of their mother, some of them, they've just been very welcoming.
And I do want to kind of revise a statement I made earlier. I know that Robin Maxfield founded Boston Comedy Chicks just because she felt it was also primarily easier and more supportive towards female comics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing against men, because she has great relationships with male comics, but there wasn't a venue that solely supported women at the time.
And that's a big mission of Michelle Barbera, who is the co-founder of Women in Comedy Festival, to get more women into comedy, that they feel comfortable doing this. This is an environment that you're going to find women at. We guarantee there'll be women there.
Yes.
And you're going to be comfortable, and they'll be friendly. That's really important to me.
But why do you say that in many shows you could be one or only one or two of the female entertainers? Why is it that in shows men dominate?
Good $1 million question, right? I think some of it too is just the ratio. There's more men doing stand-up.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and so that's a piece of it. But if you're a woman and you're good at comedy, you're gonna go far here in Boston. You're gonna get stage time here in Boston. That's not to say that it's like, nobody has problems. Like we all do, trying to get stage time. But yeah.
But generally speaking, you feel that male performers have been very supportive to you.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
That's good to know, because I think a lot of people it's already an intimidating business. And then if you go in with the assumption that you're not going to be welcome somehow, because you're you're the minority gender here or something. So that's good to clarify.
Right. Here's the thing. We've said several times, try an open mic, try an open mic, try an open mic 3 times. The thing is, we see people come and go so much in the stand-up community that once you come the 3rd or 4th time, you're like, oh, maybe they really want to get into this. And you might start talking to people, or they may feel a little bit more warm and welcoming to you. It's just that we see many different people come and go, and some of us are introverted, shy people, and we're just staying to ourselves. So if you try it a couple of times, you're going to get a very different experience.
Now, if you go on to bostoncomedychicks.com, and you can look under workshops and find out when they're being held, and it's a very minimal cost.
It's $20. You get 2.5 hours.
Two and a half hours with, would-be colleagues and aspiring comics, and I think it's a fabulous opportunity. Is it possible for people just to attend, not to participate, but to look, just to watch?
Oh, good question.
Observe?
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. Kind of like audit it.
Yeah, just to see what it's like.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, and I would really encourage people to do that. Now, before we get too far, I just really want to make sure that people can find you on your personal website. And it's Kathe Farris. And let me spell that for you because it's a little different. It's Kathe, Kathe Farris, FARRIS.com.
You got it.
Okay, very good. Tell us a little bit about what you have planned for the rest of the year or coming up.
Well, coming up in March, I'm going to the Gilda Radner's Laugh Fest in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which I'm very excited about, where I'll perform with other comedians around the country. And then what we have in March 1st, I have a workshop. on a Thursday, and then
And that's going to be at Doyle's.
that's going to be at Doyle's in Jamaica Plains, 7 o'clock to 9:30. And
through
you can
BostonComedyChicks.com.
Right. And then in April, the Women in Comedy Festival starts here in Boston. And from April 19th, I think, to the 22nd, they've got a bunch of great headliners coming in. And then they also showcase women from across the country who, like me, do stand-up. And they're just many different voices, many different, ways of doing it. So, and they do improv and short film as well.
It's wonderful that we live in an area where comedy is king, that we can, or queen, we can go in and we can have so many possibilities with open mics and all of that. Now, for the novice, how early should you get in there to put your name down to be on an open mic, generally speaking?
I would go about an hour early.
An hour early, folks.
Right. But if you look at the list, on Reddit, there's a Boston comedy list, and that is comprehensive. That's got everything in there. Or meetups, they'll have meetups in there, so you can just look there, and it will kind of give you an indication. But typically about an hour beforehand to put your name on the list.
And if you do a comedy routine, ideally, what should be the length of your bit?
Oh, that's a good question. It's between 2 and 3 minutes for an open mic. You get between 2 and 3 minutes.
That's not too bad. You can come up with something hilarious for 2 or 3 minutes.
I think so. And people don't expect you to be hilarious for the 2 to 3 minutes. They realize that you're practicing comedy. Nobody's expecting Comedy Central. Yeah.
Well, this has really been wonderful having you on our show. We've learned so much. We've learned so much about stand-up comedy, the performance, and the writing. I'm really grateful to you, Kathe Farris, Kathe Farris, FARRIS.com. And look her up. Take one of her workshops like I did, and it actually led me to performing at the Milton Arts Center in New Hampshire and a couple of other venues. And for those of you who do public speaking in general, they always say that infusing humor into your speech always makes you a top speaker. So I want to thank Kathe Farris for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you the next time on It's All Right with Suzette. Love and laughter, everybody.
I like how that...